Hey guys, this is Pastrytime. It's time for another audio commentary, this time featuring Renekton, the crocodile of doom, or whatever his actual name is. It is really cold where I am, so I'm just going to quickly find a jumper before we get started. What can I talk about while I'm looking for stuff? Very exciting, I know. Probably a good thing because you can't see me looking around my room, which is obscenely messy, as always. Renekton. Yeah, I guess we'll talk about it. So we're going to be talking about a lot with Renekton today. We'll be covering basic, like obviously his abilities and stuff, kind of how you use them in lane. We'll be talking about laning a lot actually, specifically spacing and zoning in lane, which is something that applies to everyone, which is good. And we'll be talking about 2v1 lanes as well, because I'll actually be 2v1ing top. So I know it's kind of awkward, you know, maybe you play a premium with your friends and you just got someone jungling, you know, you're in normal queue, so there's the other team doesn't have a jungler, and you're like, well, I have to 2v1. That sucks. But it's not all bad. I'm actually of the opinion that a 2v1 is an advantage for the person in the 2v1 lane. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Why when we get into this? Just quickly while we're here, talk about runes, masteries, and summoner spells, I suppose. I've got a ghost and exhaust. The exhaust is more of a personal choice, really. It's kind of a good offensive and defensive option. You could have ignite as well. You could pretty much have any other secondary summoner spell. I just happen to like ghost as my mobility spell, and you could have flash ghost if you wanted to. You could have ghost exhaust, ghost ignite. I would usually take ghost over flash, kind of no matter what happened. But again, that's more of a preference for chasing people down. I don't really need the flash. Renekton's reasonably mobile. He's got a short dash, blinky kind of thing in slice and dice. So yeah, I don't really need the flash, but ghosting to chase down people in your giant alligator form is super happy fun times. So yeah, I should be doing that at all times. I'm just covering Mr. Zinjao over here, who will be jungling. He's starting at the double golems, so of course I asked double golems, he says yes. And so I decide to go sit at the top entrance to jungle on the left side, I guess, for purple. Just in there. Yep, right where I am there. So yeah, summoner spells pretty much up to your discretion. You could have clairvoyance if you wanted to, you could have teleport, you could have rally, heal, whatever. You can have whatever you like. You have revive if you want to. But I like ghost exhaust, I like ghost ignite too, but I felt, especially if I might be 2v1ing, that the exhaust is generally better, because you can use it on defense and offense. It's not as good offensively as ignite is, but you have the option, which is good, especially as you find yourself initiating a lot. You generally want to exhaust somebody scary in the middle of a fight if you can, and you'll see the exhaust come in handy this game. For runes, I've got my tanky DPS runes on now. If I remember correctly, I've got move speed quintessences, because most of the tanky DPSs, you need them to be mobile, and you want them to be able to run through teams and chase down squishies and carries and all sorts of scary people like that. And I've got Armour Pen Marks, definitely, and I think I probably have MR per level Glyphs. I'm just looking at my stats here, and I don't have armor, so I'm guessing I have dodge, which is correct. I do have dodge. So dodge skills, Armour Pen Marks, move speed quints, and MR blues or glyphs. You can have pretty much whatever you like, really, as long as you have armor pen in there somewhere. You can have armor seals. You could have cooldown glyphs, which I had for a while. They were cool, but you know, just kind of standard tanky runes. You want to balance between armor pen and Armour Pen on DPS and tankiness, but I've chosen to go quite tanky here. I'm also 0.21.9 in Masteries as well, so quite a lot of bulk. In terms of starting items, I do have a Doran's Blade. You can start with Doran's Shield as well, that's good too, or boots and potions if you want to do that as well. You know, that's all stuff you can do. And I'm just waiting. You'll notice I'm not really committing here. I know that there's someone else in this lane, and I guess that it's Garen, given that he's kind of hiding in the brush. There's a last hit I could have gotten there, which I go back for and miss, sadly. But yeah, I'm pretty much just waiting for Garen to pop out, as I'm guessing he's somewhere. He's the only one on the team I can't see. So, and there he is. There's a Garen. And yeah, so talk about runes, talk about masteries, talked about items. So yeah, pretty much the drones items are your best bet. They're both really good. I prefer Blade just for a little bit more, so I can be a little bit more aggressive in lane. Obviously, given that this is a 2v1, Shield might have been a bit better, but they're both really good. And you'll gain enough armor per level as well, even if you don't have armor runes, that you should be more than fine. with defensive stats. So that's all that stuff. Even if you don't have armor ends, you should end up with plenty of defense. So while we're here in this 2v1 lane, we'll talk a little bit about spacing and zoning. So as a general concept, the way you want to approach a lane is by drawing lines between your champion and their champion. So in a 1v1 lane, it's really I'll actually go down to mid very quickly. So Teemo vs Twisted Fate here. This is a big line here. So their ranges are actually quite similar. So if you think it's kind of about, except for wildcards obviously, but if you want to think about it as like a small range in here, if you guys can see where I'm circling, this is kind of their attack range. And so any point beyond here, this midpoint here, that I'm kind of following them around is, as you can see, yeah, ranges and stuff, is safe. So you always want to know the range of, the range of the abilities and their auto attack range of the champions you're facing in lane, and you want to kind of draw a line between them and you at all times, and obey the rules of that line based on what you want to do. So Renekton's obviously a melee champion, but I have E, which is a short dash, I have W, which is a melee range stun, and I have my Q, which is a short-ranged melee attack. So you'll see there I saw Garen was going into Aurelia. I dashed backwards in order to decrease the distance between Garen and I, because I'm scared of, Garen and Aurelia, because I'm scared of both of them. I'm not scared of one of them, but both of them definitely would cause some problems. You'll notice I'm ducking back in and out of creeps as well, but unless I'm going for last hits, I'm basically keeping them as far as I possibly can. So both these champions are quite short-ranged. The only thing I really have to worry about in terms of ranges is Aurelia's Blade Surge, her dash. And I'm just making sure I understand that I'm out of the range of that for the most part. So her range for Blade Surge is about from where she is there, about here or so. Try and follow my mouse over to where Aurelia's Blade Surge is, so about there. Again, this is something, ranges and stuff you learn when you play more, and as you play with and against more champions, you'll understand more about that stuff. But if you're having trouble spacing against a particular champion, play that champion for a couple of games, and you'll get a real good feel for how their ranges work. So the more you play, the better. I'm pretty much coming into only last hit. And I'm pretty much just trying to farm up with my Q, which I'm maxing first, by the way. So my skill order, just quickly, is I level Q first, then W, then E, and of course I take a point of my ultimate every single time I can. So yeah, so the spacing I was talking about. So yeah, you'll see. I understand that also in relation to creeps that I need to be close enough to them as a melee champion if I want to actually get last hits, which I do because I need to farm. So you'll notice I'll close the distance when I'm required to last hit, and I'll keep my distance accordingly. So pretty much as you need to, you want to distance yourself appropriately. Now, spacing is a concept, it's just what I call it. It's different from zoning in that you're not worried really about, zoning is more about what space is being denied or controlled by any respective champion at one point. So Renekton controls a pretty small space around him as a melee champion. He covers a little bit more space with his E, but given that only he can cover, he can really only use all his abilities in melee range, it's not a big deal. Like, he doesn't control a lot of space, he has no AoE, really. He has no kind of lasting field or bit of terrain he can put down in order to scare them away. So Renekton's ability to zone is reasonably low, given that this is a 2v1 lane. If it was a 1v1 lane, it would be quite different. I would be aggressively using my Q and my dash, my slice and dice, in order to deny space from my opponent. But as it is, I'm not really seeking control. I don't want to get zoned as much as possible in this instance. Spacing, to me, which is a term I've actually stolen from fighters. Again, you might have a different name for it, it just happens to be what I call it. But spacing is the idea that you want to create the appropriate space or distance depending on the champion you're against. So I was talking about knowing the ranges of champions' skills and abilities and auto attacks. And basically you want to have your enemy champions stay in your attack ranges as much as possible, and you want to stay out of their attack ranges as much as possible. So that's the idea of spacing. For the kind of the way it works in fighters, for those who are curious, and this might help explain it better as well, is that obviously different, different characters in fighting games have different attack ranges. So if a particular attack is really damaging, you want to stay out of its way until you're ready to use your attack, and that's the idea of spacing. The space you keep between the characters based on their attack range of their moves, and when they can use them, what area they hit in. So very similar in League of Legends. Hopefully the term doesn't confuse anyone that's played fighters, and hopefully that makes sense. But that's my name for it. I really like it. I think it explains. I think it's a good name for what I'm talking about, and I think it's different from zoning, which is really important to understand. So spacing, I'll be talking about that on a lot of videos actually. I thought I might do an entire video devoted to zoning and spacing. I've got a game that I think demonstrates it reasonably well, but yeah. So in a 2v1 then you want to be spacing to the champion closest to you. So you'll notice that when and in relation to brush as well. So even if you can't see the champion, you wanna be careful. So this bush here, I mean I can still see Garen, but that bush there is just dangerous to me. I want to stay away from it. As soon as Garen goes missing, because he might come out of there and kill me. So that bush is something that's actually zoning me, and Garen's. It's weird that the lack of Garen's presence is something that actually scares me. So you'll notice I'm backing up a lot into the back, kind of left corner of the lane here, trying to stay away from the approach I assume Garen is taking. And when I enter, I'm entering from the left side, so over here. I'll try and use my mouse more. I start laying into Aurelia here because she's alone, and I want to use my level advantage to kind of, to push her out of lane. I mean, I've been in a 2v1 lane. It's been a disadvantage for me, in quotation marks, for that whole time. So I want to use the advantage it has given me, which is extra experience and farm in this case as well, to and really abuse that. However, Aurelia deals quite a lot of damage, and life steals a fair amount with their ultimate. So I find myself in quite a bit of trouble. Managed to just get away from Garen there by using my short dash to counter his melee attacks. Again, talking about spacing. He's trying to hit me with Decisive Strike, which is melee range. My dash puts me, like, almost double the distance out of, or probably just a bit less than double the distance out of melee range of somebody. So, that's a pretty obvious way to get away. And I've been spacing using it this entire time in lane. You'll notice I did it there again, more as a countermeasure than anything else. I'm playing quite conservatively. I'm trying to be careful, and mainly just farming with my Q. Garen, I get really scared there because I think Garen's going to ult me, so I end up going back now. If he'd ulted me, I probably would have died, but he doesn't for whatever reason. He might not be 6. That's probably what it is. Yeah, I think he's 5. Let me double check when Garen pops up again. But I was very afraid of getting ulted there. So yeah, we've talked Runes Masteries, we've talked about spacing, which is kind of a general thing. Hopefully that helps you over that, and helps you in your approach to 2v1 lanes. Basically, given how much experience and how much you are getting and how much farm you could potentially get, because you're able to farm twice as many creeps as your opponents who are sharing the farm, even if you don't actually end up farming that much because of harassment. You are potentially able to farm twice as much as the people in your lane. You're at an advantage, the way I see it. Like, the level advantage in and of itself is an incredible advantage. For any of you who remember when Dragon used to give lots and lots of global experience, the reason they changed that was because if you snowballed Dragon, one team was just significantly out-leveling the other, and that was enough of an advantage, even without considering the gold it gave and considering the farm. So a level advantage is a massive advantage in this game. Like it has been in other MOBAs, and yeah, you definitely want to watch out for that. You'll notice I'm just kind of attacking creeps down, trying to keep my fury at a reasonable rate, and I'm using Q to farm them. I'm basically trying to stay in lane as much as possible, for as long as possible, which is always what you want to do as Renekton, and be as aggressive as I can be. My Q has a reasonable range, which I can A, use to harass with if I get close enough, and B, use to last hit with without forcing myself into melee range against these two melee champions. So again, we're talking about spacing. I'm abusing the range on my Q in order to farm and harass as effectively as I can in this 2v1 lane. You'll notice my CS is quite high. It's 70 at the moment at 13 minutes in. It does end up getting quite high generally this game, and I do end up with a lot of good farm as a result, which helps me later in the game. But yeah, when you're in this situation, really, you're at the advantage. If you're having trouble, you're getting harassed, hug your turret as much as possible. They're forced to push your lane, no matter what happens, because there are two of them. Even if they did nothing at all, it's likely that you'd still be able to stay in experience range. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works. I mean, it sucks. You have to play. You absolutely have to play conservatively, which is what I've been doing. But and you can be selectively aggressive when one of them leaves, which is one of the really good things about it. And you'll notice that's what I'm trying to do to Aurelia now that I assume she's alone. Again, this level advantage is just like I just do more damage than her. I have better farm. I have more items. So yeah, it feels like a disadvantage, but it's really an advantage. So just play safe in your 2v1 lanes. Play smart, space accordingly, which is harder with two champions to space than one, definitely, especially if one or both of them are ranged. Although it's probably harder with one melee and one ranged, just given how many different things you have to think of. But yeah, enjoy your 2v1 lane, especially as someone as sustainable as Renekton. Despite the fact that they nerfed the heal in his Q, it still gives you enough healing, especially with Fury, especially when you use it furiously. I'm trying to say that. I'm going to call it your furious Qs. That's what I'm going to say. Your furious Qs give you quite a lot of healing, especially if you hit champions as well. Despite the change in recent patches. So yeah, just try and stay as lane as much as possible. The Doran's Blade helps here. Be selectively aggressive, again in a solo lane, which I might try and do a commentary on, me as Renekton in a solo lane. You would probably be more aggressive, given how dominating your lane presence is. But yeah, use all your tools available. Use your Q's range to harass and farm. Use your W to stun them off you. I stunned Garen off him on multiple occasions when he came at me with a decisive strike. And again, quickly making sure I can get out of harm's way with my slice and dice. So now that we've talked all about that, which is quite a lot of the commentary so far, we'll talk about item builds. My item build for Renekton never changes, really, almost like ever. The core of the build, and the thing you want to get first are Ionian Boots of Lucidity. All Renekton's kind of damage and utility is based purely on cooldowns. His abilities don't cost mana. Being in combat and using abilities and attacking stuff gives you more fury, which enhance your abilities, but they're all cooldown based, like Garen or Katarina, if you want to think about it that way. So in order to increase his damage output by the maximum amount, you want lower cooldowns. So you could get Merc Treads if you want. Berserker Greaves are kind of useless to you though. The only other choice I'd ever consider is Merc Treads, and given that I have a magic resist on my glyphs anyway, and that I'm reasonably tanky, as a general rule, I would rather get more damage by getting cooldown boots, and I think that gives me the biggest damage boost. I'm just going in on Aurelia here, using my stun, juking her ult really well actually, again abusing my level advantage, and abusing all my abilities to make sure she stays down in lane, and denying her farm and experience as a result. So that's more of the stuff you'd be doing if you're solo 1-on-1, although obviously it would be harder given that you wouldn't have such a monstrous level advantage. After Ionian Boots, I go for Sunfire Cape. Sunfire Cape is mainly just a consistent damage thing. If you're not tanky as a tanky DPS, you tend not to do anything. I mean, cooldown boots are a nice exception that you can go that are cheap and don't cost Renekton much in the way of defense, that really bolsters your damage. But you need to generally think of tanky DPS as going tanky first and damage second. So Sunfire Cape has two uses in that case. It gives me extra magic AoE damage, which does synergize with my ult, and given that you're usually in the middle of fights as Renekton, often even initiating, it's good for you to have an extra source of passive damage you don't have to worry about, especially while your abilities are on cooldown. You have something that's always ticking, even if your abilities aren't up. It also helps with farming, by the way. That's another really good thing about Sunfire Cape. And you're able to push reasonably well and farm very well with Sunfire Cape and Q, which is called Boomerang Strike. No, Call the Make. It should be called Boomerang Blade. No, that's a serious spell. I don't know, it should be called the Batarang or something. Something funny like that. And after Sunfire Cape, I always go Force of Nature. So, despite course, it gives you magic resist, which is good. Force of Nature also gives you regen, which helps you stay in lane, or if you're being harassed or being poked before a team fight initiation. It gives you the ability to regenerate health. And also during fights you regenerate a bit of health as well, which is good, synergizing with the whole lifesteal thing from your Q. And the Doran's Blade in this case. And gives you movement speed. Again, I've talked about tanks and tanky characters, and especially melee characters, really valuing mobility. Renekton is no exception, and it's really the movement speed on Force of Nature, combined with all the bulk you get from that magic resist and the armor from Sunfire Cave, that make Renekton powerful. Once you get Force of Nature, you are in boss mode, basically. Like, you are ready to go as Renekton. So, farm to that point is really what I'm doing here. I mean, I've won my lane. We actually haven't lost a tower yet, which is good. But I'm basically being left alone in my solo lane. Again, they're behind. No one really wants to take me on. I've got good farm. I've got high levels because, you know, I had a disadvantage. I didn't have a jungler. So, I'm really abusing it and just trying to farm as much as possible. I've got my Sunfire Cape, which allows me to push. I feel a lot bulkier than before. I'm less afraid of ganks. I'm happily 2v1ing Garen and Aurelia now and being more aggressive, trying to push this lane further, given that I now have the items and I don't know what to call it. I'm going to just keep using bulk and the tankiness to use that. And I'm just going to keep farming and pushing as much as I can until either my team does something or somebody makes a silly mistake and lets me kill them. So that's pretty much how that works. In terms of... what was I going to talk about? Yeah, you'll notice that I've started backing away when Garen silenced me. Again, given that Renekton is pretty much cooldown based and almost pretty much burst damage like, given that the majority of his damage comes from abilities and using his cooldowns. Getting silenced really sucks, so every time Garen silenced me, even before in lane, I backed away, knowing that obviously if I can't use my abilities, that would be bad. Some champions you can just auto-attack away, like Xin Zhao. I mean, his abilities are great, but you don't really need them. Like, I mean, you can just auto-attack people to death. Pretty much all his abilities make him auto-attack better anyway. The ward notices Akali there, so I go in to try and find her. Obviously I don't want to chase after her because there are 3 of them up here and then the 2 of us here now, even though Xin Zhao's coming through. But yeah, this is awesome actually. So they come into the bush, focus Aurelia. I'm waiting on my ult because I don't need to hit it yet. Basically you only want to hit it when you're in trouble. I don't think I hit it at all actually. Unfortunately Maud goes down to an ignite, but managed to clean up Aurelia pretty easily, and TF comes in for the Garen kill, who ends up getting very low, and I get blue buff, which is always nice. If I went back and looked at that, I could probably have done more to stun the main damage outlet off Mordekaiser, and probably focused a little bit better. But yeah, I mean that was really just silly of them. They were never going to win that fight. I probably would have killed Garen anyway. In a 2v1 there, I probably would have been fine. And yeah, so I wasn't too worried there. TF, I mean, he came and got the kill, which was nice. He could have even Destinied in earlier. So we would have won that. So to prevent Maud from dying, but you know, that's his business, not mine. Vladimir does an absolute ton of damage, which is really scary. But I'm going to turn this around by ulting, stunning him, and then dicing out just in time. And then I'm going to come back in here, exhaust Akali, I'm pretty sure, who tries to focus me, and just stun Akali, and end up doing just enough damage to stay alive there. Combination of all my farms, my items, my levels, and blue buff really saved me there, but I wasn't afraid at all. You'll notice that I use my ult at pretty much the latest second possible, considering how much bulk your ult gives you and how much damage it actually does in terms of AoE. Again, even though they nerfed it recently. You want to use your ult only when you're actually in trouble. I waited until Vladimir was really dedicated to killing me there, until he'd blown his Ignite, his Hemoplague, and all the rest of his cooldowns, and then I finally like, okay, I might die here. Time to ultimate and turn around and kill him. So it's really important you save your ultimate as Renekton. Dominus is very powerful. It gives you an incredible amount of kind of defense and offense, and it really accentuates Renekton's good qualities, which are high survivability and a mid to high continual damage output. Again, tanky DPS is mostly about continuous damage output, so that's what we get from Renekton here. And his ult really accentuates that. But anyway, we've gone along here, running into some people. They are mildly scary, so I might dash away just before Garen silences me, which was cute. And we notice that I've farmed up, I've got my Force of Nature, I've got well over 150 minion kills. And it's boss mode time. I'm sad to say that I don't actually get to show a whole lot of late game Renekton stuff here because the game does end, given that it's 18 to 8, and I'm just kind of getting trounced. But again, running away from the silence because it's scary. But I'm just poking in with my Q there. But yeah, you pretty much 123 armor, 151 MR, lots of movement speed, lots of AoE damage, lots of scariness. You're pretty much ready to go. After this, I get a Ghost Blade. I'm getting the Brutalizer part first, and then finishing it whenever I feel like it. You don't need much more than the Brutalizer, really, in terms of damage. Eventually finish the Ghost Blade, and then after that you can get more tanky items. You should get Guardian Angel, and then depending on what's happening in the game and how it's going and what you need to defend or attack, you can choose your items from there. But yeah, so my core build definitely though, cooldown boots as soon as possible, Sunfire Cape, Force of Nature. You're good to go, pick up a Brutalizer, get a Ghost Blade, and the game should hopefully be over by then. But yeah, I did have a lot of fun this game, which was nice. And they surrender. So sorry if that game was a little bit short, guys. I don't always want the games to be short, as I've talked about, but sometimes I can't help it. Hopefully I covered quite a lot of interesting stuff with Renekton. I'll probably do another commentary, given that there's a lot I can cover. Renekton, I think, is a really fun champion. I love playing him. But anyway, guys, comment, rate, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.